workshop, looking for amendment approval of the agenda board.
So moved?
Second.
Let me back up one thing. We're going to postpone the presentation A, and we have a gentleman in the office, Jeff Foss, who wants to visit, and he'll probably be followed up. Or do you want to precede him, Roadmaster Christensen?
I'm good.
Okay. Step right up the microphone. You're welcome to take your, oops,
Sure.
excuse me,
Gotta get a
Yeah,
vote.
the vote on the amending or approving the agenda.
Gotta-
with
Motion.
amendments. Is that okay?
Yep.
Okay. So can we have the motion to reflect that we are slightly changing the presentation sequence here?
As amended.
As amended, second.
That's even better. Call for the question? We should give you a little more warning, JJ.
Ash.
Aye.
Vice Chair Herzog.
Yes.
Chair Boyce.
Yes?
Motion carried unanimously.
Thank you.
There you go.
So you're now officially 3A, Mr. Foss. Welcome. Glad to have you here.
Thank you. Thanks for the invite. I haven't met you all, so nice to meet you all.
All right.
And my name's Jeff Foss, for the record. I live over on Hillside Terrace in Wedderburn in the Rogue Hills subdivision. And I'm just here today. I'd like to bring to your attention the need for repairs on the roadside terrace or Hillside Terrace. For several years, there's been a lot of talk, I believe, about working on Hillside Terrace, redoing the road. My personal knowledge dates back to Doug Robbins, I believe is his name. He preceded Mr. Christensen in his position currently. And it was a rainy day one day up there, storming like cats and dogs, and one of the culverts across the street got all clogged up, and I went out there and I looked at it and I thought, no, I'm not gonna mess with that. I don't wanna get sucked up in that thing. So I called Mr. Robbins, and he sent a crew out, fixed the problem really quickly, and I thanked him for that. Water was literally running across the roadway. And that was kind of the beginning of my story. I discussed with him a little bit about the roadway and my feelings about repairs that were necessary. And ironically, the woman that lived in that house where that culvert was ultimately replaced with a plastic one, she had fallen down on Hillside Terrace and injured herself, had to seek medical attention. She now no longer lives on Hillside Terrace or in town for that matter. As time went on, well, Mr. Robbins had told me that there were works to replace Hillside Terrace. That particular time was March 6th of 2017 when I sent him an email. And I don't know if I can approach you guys. I'd probably just prefer
It's fine.
to give you guys a lot of this information that I've written and compiled and emailed back and forth that pertains to the roadway and various individuals that I felt needed to be informed of what's going on with the roadway and how dangerous it is. There's a few emails in here that were more personal and got a little funky that I did not include in here. They're not really about the roadway, so to speak. I just highlighted a few items in here that I'd like to go through, and I have no idea about my time limit. I'm gonna try to get through here fairly quickly. If I'm running too long, you guys need to let me know. I'm sure you will.
How much time do you need, Mr. Foss, approximately?
Well, probably just about 10 minutes, I suppose I can get through here.
That'll be okay.
Okay, thank you. I received a response back from Mr. Christensen that I sent an email to on January 19th of 2021 expressing my concern and others that live on Hillside Terrace about our roadway. The runoff during the storms just gets out of control. The road is not sloped in the right direction for the runoff to go into the drainage ditch, which leads down to a very large drain at the bottom of the roadway. I hope you had an opportunity to go out there, Mr. Boyce, and take a look at the roadway like we discussed. If not, then I still ask you, please do so, to get a first-hand experience.
I see your wife in the McKay's Deli a couple of times a week, early in the morning, so I want her happy.
That's correct. And she's back at it again,
Yes,
by
sir.
the way. I just wrote in an email to Mr. Christensen, once again, that we're concerned about our roadway. Several bullet points for discussion that are in here. The runoff, the drainage, and the roadway itself. And he responded and told me that there's a lot in the works that I didn't know about at the time. Now, this was a response on January 20th, 21. And he wrote to me and said that the street's non-conforming. It's shaped oddly, I guess. It's steep on both ends of the roadway and then just kind of comes down into a middle like that. It's about 100 yards worth of roadway is all that we're talking about. The north end of Hillside Terrace is in good condition. Well, relative to ours anyway, it's in pretty darn good condition. For some reason, that part of the roadway that I live on has just been ignored for years. So he wrote down about the non-conforming roadway and that spending $100,000 on just laying new pavement down isn't gonna cut the mustard. He's talking about a large project, talking about the CIP plan, the 6-year plan. And he says that I am placing this as a paving project in 2022 paving schedule, but it depends on the outcome of the 2021 storm drain CIP plan. Well, from my understanding, that meeting never happened. Is that correct? The CIP storm plan? Was that meeting canceled?
I'm not familiar with that, to be very honest.
Okay.
Roadmaster's got his hand up.
Oh, yeah, we're gonna call on you. Do you wanna come up now?
No, but I think you should just finish reading his letter, and I didn't bring that email with me,
Okay?
but if I could borrow your email when you're done,
For sure.
and I can tell you exactly where we're at.
Okay, great. Then he mentioned that in the next month or so, he was gonna take to the board a request to approve moving forward with the county 6-year storm drainage CIP to be completed in the fall of 2021. Well, we're there now. His plan was when the board approves and adopts the CIP plans to the road department will pursue grant application for funding extensive road hills paving and drainage repairs for 10% of the project value through federal and state grants. If we can get a grant, we can leverage the $100,000 into approximately $1 million storm drain and paving project for Hillside Terrace. I asked him several questions, and one of his responses was, with board approval, we will be moving forward with the county roads drainage CIP plan. This plan will have a public workshop in which you and your neighbors can have a Rogue Hills drainage concern expressed and addressed. To the best of my knowledge, none of us have had that opportunity at this time, until today, of course, myself's here. There was a questionnaire sent out back in June and July of 2020. It was a public survey that was distributed by the residents of Curry County to the residents of Curry County to provide feedback on roadways, bridges, and/or traffic concerns. And it goes on. There's a few locations that were commented on, public comments. Hillside Terrace is one of them. Says the south end of Hillside Terrace in Wedderburn has been pretty much neglected to the point where it needs to be redone. Large potholes and chunks of asphalt have been falling out for years. There are alligatored portions as well. Drainage from the roadway itself has become quite a problem in heavy rain. It deserves a look from our county roadmaster. Check the road surface north and south of 3034 Hillside Terrace. Several years ago, the prior roadmaster told him we were to have our road fixed, but nothing has happened since then. Please, we're feeling a little neglected here. Part of the 6-year capital plan, improvement plan, there's a map that was provided. I'll just give this packet to all of you, and please take a look at it when you go through. And they're all emails, so, you know, it starts at the back page and then you have to work your way forward kind of thing to keep it in chronological order. But our road was rated as 2.0, which is the equivalent of poor. It says that it has a description that needs full reconstruction. The existing section of Hillside Terrace, and it indicates in red on the map the south portion of Hillside Terrace that I've always referenced to. And it says that many homes in this area are showing significant signs of distress. Well, when these storms come through and the drainage is at fault for causing problems and hasn't been addressed for so many years that water just literally runs everywhere. I know in my driveway, when it rains really hard, water comes pouring off the roadway into my driveway. And it's washing dirt and gravel off of it. Every year I lose more and more land. And so do my neighbors. I hear them complain about it. My neighbor across the street says that she literally has a bit of a creek that comes down in there. And it's washing the roadway, but you know, it's her issue, it's on her property, you know. It's not a road issue, it's before it gets to the road, so I understand all of that. And several of our neighbors have discussed that.
Okay,
We have certain obligations.
2 minutes.
Mhm.
About 2 minutes, can you do that?
Okay.
Thank you.
Have I been talking that long already?
Yeah, but you're fine. I appreciate that you brought printed information.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm just trying to hit some points here. It's a little bit redundant. I just I reiterate about the non-conforming street. Yeah, it was a bad day. My gal was out there on the road walking back in down towards the driveway, and she slipped and fell. She injured her ankle. She came into the house, told me. I got a bag of ice, told her to sit down, put it on her ankle because it was swelling up like crazy already. Unfortunately, it was on a Friday afternoon. Neither one of us thought that her ankle was broke or foot, but we waited till Monday for her to go to the doctor. So it was kind of a miserable weekend, and it was not broke. I had her approval to provide these photographs to you. I understand well about HIPAA regulations. And I have some more photos in here of the roadway. Please take a look at them. And also, I've just spent a lot of my own personal time on this. I'm a retired individual. I don't work. I'd rather be fishing right now. Fishing's pretty darn good out there.
Do you share?
Pardon me?
Do you share?
Oh, absolutely. I would.
Fishing's good, but catching's not.
Well, I'd beg to differ with that. The last thing, I know I probably went over my 2 minutes, but I want to be proactive on this. I didn't come here to just bitch and complain about things. I'd really appreciate you guys to take a look at this. I keep reiterating myself on that because too much time has gone by where I feel that things have been ignored. No responses. It disheartens me. I've seen 3 of my neighbors get injured on the roadway in closing. They all had to seek medical advice. The very last thing that I had is that a couple of senators in our state had an article about Powers. They commented on a grant that Powers received so that they can replace their stormwater drainage and roadways system. $30,000 grant to help them along. Senators Wyden and, I forget, Merkley. They were part of this, and this is the last 2 paragraphs I'm going to take your time on. As Oregonians living and working in small towns throughout our state deserve big league infrastructure. I'm gratified that Powers has earned these federal resources to improve water quality and better prepare its stormwater system for when bad weather strikes southwestern Oregon. Everyone, regardless of what they look like, where they live, or how much money they have, should have access to clean and reliable infrastructure, said Merkley. This grant funding will help us deliver that by facilitating critical stormwater system upgrades and powers. I look forward to watching this project progress and will continue to do all that I can bring similar investments to communities throughout our state. Perhaps another lead for funding. I don't know. And I appreciate all your time. That's what I've got for you, and I hope you take it all into consideration, and I wish everybody good health on Hillside Terrace.
Roadmaster Christians,
Brings back memories.
Christensen.
He wanted me to, do you still want that email?
Yeah, like the email I sent you with what I promised.
welcome back.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Thank you for coming down here, Mr. Foss. And I'd like to explain everything on that email and the process and why and where we're at with the process. Thank you. And so, just a little background. Rogue Hills is a subdivision that the County Board of Commissioners took into its inventory back in the 60s. And it's doesn't meet current standards. I mean, there's houses out there built on top of storm drains, and they're private. They belong to those property owners. Hillside Terrace, at the time, I believe at the time the county adopted back in the 60s, was a gravel road. Okay, and over the years, the county has put a little asphalt on it, and it's not pretty, but turned it into asphalt. And Mr. Foss reached out to me, and I let him know that what the process would be, and so I gave him I shot him an email, and so he asked me a bunch of questions, so I answered his questions, and so I go, Mr. Foss, paving Hillside Terrace presents a host of problems with it being a non-conforming county road standards road. We also don't want to spend $100,000 on a non-conforming paving project that may worsen existing downstream storm drainage issues. You know, we got houses built over storm drains, and we don't want to make that worse, and we don't want to cause flooding worse. And so these downstream issues, before these deficiencies are identified and mitigated, and that's what I'm talking about, a storm plan. Stormwater plan that we're currently working on. Also, we don't want to spend $100K on a paving project that doesn't fit project scope of both the road and storm 6-year capital improvement plans. Because if we just start paving out there and we start paving things, it's going to have to be ripped out if it doesn't meet the engineering standards of these two plans. I am placing this as a paving project in 2022 paving schedule, but it depends on the outcome of the upcoming 2021 storm drain plan, which we're in the process of. And he hasn't been invited to it yet, but he will be. I'm taking to the Board of Commissioners our 6-year road CIP plan for approval, and we completed that
We've
plan.
already done that, yeah.
And in that plan, we also had public outreach. And in that public outreach, we took the information, it was probably from Mr. Foss saying about the condition of that road, and he read what was said. And we put that information into our CIP plan, and we developed a project. It's a $500,000 project to bring that road up to standards. But it doesn't have the component of it with the storm drainage. We just can't put a road in there without the storm drainage taken care of too. And that's the second plan that's underway right now. And, excuse me. And anyways, so basically, so we have one plan done, the roads plan, and it identified that road as being a $500,000 project. And now we're working on a stormwater plan that's gonna identify all the downstream deficiencies so that way you don't flood somebody out when we put this new road in. And so that plan, I had told them at the time, a year and a half ago, I was planning on delivering that plan to you this fall. But that plan, you approved us moving forward with that plan with Dyer Partnership this around, I think it was May. And that plan is now scheduled to be delivered to you for board approval and adoption in April, May next year. So I'm behind schedule. I apologize, I'm 6 months behind schedule on that. Okay, and I've always responded to Mr. Foss in a timely manner. Whenever he's contacted me, you know, I've always been really good. And you can see in this email, let me see if it has his response to me. He goes, Roadmaster Christensen, thank you very much for your rapid and informative response. I'll share this information with my neighbors and do what I can to keep things moving forward. And I see to him, thank you. I'll try to, and personally let you know when our storm CIP is open for public comment. And that's gonna be this fall, okay? And right now we're in heavy construction season, and so is Dyer Partnership. We're not working on the plan during the summer, but we're gonna start working on it really heavy this fall. And so how this works is this, is that, okay, say, we know the road part's $500,000 if we're gonna make it a county standard road. We don't know what the stormwater part is gonna be, but this master plan will come up with that. And maybe it's 200,000, maybe it's say it's 250. So now you've got a $750,000 project. So the process that I'm trying to do is to keep moving forward to find funding that he's talking about, but I'm not looking for $30,000 of funding. I may be looking for $750,000. Well, let's just say $1 million to make it easier. So and say it's $1 million project. Now I got 2 master plans that the board has adopted. Now they're working living documents. And these grant projects, I think they're gonna be coming available just like they were when what was the town that did that? Powers did it. Those opportunities are coming up, and I'm getting these master plans in line so that when I apply for these grants that are coming up, that I think they're gonna be coming up, that these grants are gonna go score really high. Grants are highly competitive. And if I have all the documentation, all the ducks in a row, and then that's a grant we could possibly get. Say it's $1 million project, so now I'm paying 10.27% of it, or the road fund is, okay? So now that's, you know, a little over $100,000 for $1 million project. And so that's how I'm pursuing this. And so that takes time, and there's a process to that. And I believe that whenever Mr. Foss or anybody on Hillside has called about a complaint, we have always gone out there to cold patch any kind of pothole. Mr. Foss emailed a complaint last Friday. I responded. Actually, it was in my junk mail, so I didn't see it till Tuesday. But I went immediately out. I called county council. I went to look at this road, and we looked at it together. And I let county council know what this plan is I just talked with you about. And he said, you know, that's a good plan. And so that's what I'm looking at. So, you know, the thing is, if the commissioners want me to spend $1 million of that $29 million road fund, just dollar for dollar, you know, we can do that. But I recommend not doing that. You know, what we could do, if you want, is, you know, $1 million project is, you know, there's about $100,000 worth of engineering in a $1 million project. So the thing is that maybe we start the engineering. Maybe I put in the next fiscal year's budget $100,000 in engineering, or you tell me now and you want to say, Richard, we want you to move forward with the engineering. But that engineering is going to take a little bit of time, and that engineering will help with a grant. But that's going to be money out of our pocket 100% instead of using the grant. It's paying $10,000 for that engineering. So these are the processes that I'm trying to do to conserve road funds and stretch out and maximize our ability to obtain grant funds. And that's why I keep talking about this $29 million road fund. We need to conserve those for these opportunities. And so I think as a liability, you know, county council will have to talk to this, but my belief is this, is that whenever we get a call, we go out there and check it out immediately. We go clean it. You know, when they called Roadmaster in the past about cleaning a pipe, he was out there immediately, cleaned it. When he's called us about a pothole, we go out immediately and patch it. It's a non-conforming road. It's built very poorly, and but so are a lot of roads in Curry County. And So anyways, that's my response.
Commissioner Pash.
I just have one question. So when is it planned, when do you think this road will be fixed, if you came up with a date right now?
If I came over with a date right now, would be, using the process that I'm talking about, would be, say a grant became available today, just boom, and we applied for that, and you go through that cycle, it takes a few years, okay? To deliver a project, so my typical experience, 3-4 years to a project to where it's actually delivered,
Okay.
so.
Commissioner Herzog.
That would seem like a long time, but I'll tell you, in my history with Hillside Terrace, Driftwood Lane was always, paved pretty nice and had sidewalks on one side, I think. Hillside has that north end was okay, and then you drop off that hill, and I started in 1982 with UPS, and Driftwood, or Hillside Terrace has always been nasty, Mr. Foss. Even when it was, I don't know why they never did finish it. There was probably something to do with the developing of it. But that has been a cluster since way back then. And I haven't been out there recently, but I'll get out there. But I imagine it's the same. You've just kept it patching and throwing a Band-Aid on this thing. And so that's why I say that 4 years sounds like a lot, but that road has never been in great shape in the history that I have with the county.
Right, and so like when the county accepted that road into its inventory, it was a gravel road. And so that's kind of what we're dealing with. It didn't meet any standards, and
There's no sidewalks,
nor do
there's-
all the other roads in that subdivision. And it's a multi-million-dollar project to get all the drainage and roads and curb and gutters fixed in that subdivision, because it's all incorrect and
Joel, do you live
non-functioning.
are you on Driftwood or are you on Hillside Terrace?
I was on Driftwood.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're on-
Mr. Foss wanted to talk again.
Right,
His
and
hand up.
so,
Who did?
when you drive out there, just drive the whole subdivision, you'll see what I'm talking about, what we're dealing with. It's a multi-million-dollar project, but just for Hillside Terrace, at minimum, it's a $500,000 project, if we're just paving. But if we're trying to do storm drainage, and the thing is, the worst thing we could do is do all these improvements and flood somebody out. Now, we do have liability, and we do own that. So we can't just, build stuff willy-nilly and cause people problems. And so the thing is that we gotta mitigate those issues as we're developing that. And so, we're looking at delivering the stormwater plan next spring. I'm thinking April, May to you for adoption, and I'll have a better idea of what that mitigation cost is for improving those storm drains. And so, but everything he's talked about, we have responded to. We have done master plans, we're doing more master plans, and we're putting everything together for our process to cost effectively deliver those projects. And so, I know Mr. Frost wants to talk, and so.
Come on up, sir.
I just wanted to make a comment or two about Mr. Christensen. One or two of the things that he said. I talked to one of your employees, Alan Avery is his name, I believe.
Yes.
He was supposed to meet me on Hillside Terrace. We had an appointment one day, and he was a no-show, no-call. So the next day I called him up again, and I asked him what happened. And he apologized and said that he had a personal issue, and that he'd come out the next day, and he did come out the next day and meet with me. You guys had just had your crew out to Hillside Terrace and the rest of the subdivision. You had swept all the roadways, cleaned the gutters, had your vacuum machine out there sucking all the gunk out of there, however that works. And I gotta tell you, your crew didn't even come to our part of Hillside Terrace. They didn't touch it, and it was a mess.
Mr. Foss, is this something that you could talk privately with Roadmaster Christensen?
I could, sure.
Yeah, I think that might be a good.
All right.
This is on public airways, and so I'm not complaining.
Oh, okay, I'm
Not
sorry
telling you
about
what
that.
to do, but I think ever since I've known him, he's been very accessible. He's spread pretty thin, you know, like a lot of our department heads and elected officials, but I think he'll make time for you, and I think that would be more appropriate.
All right. I have no
Appreciate it.
problem with that.
Okay,
Thank you, sir.
Didn't want to turn it into a bitch session, I apologize.
okay, we're fine here. So, board, I think we have a direction here, and I think Roadmaster Christensen, excuse me, has been pretty tuned in and attentive to this, and we're looking to get some kind of direction at least by early spring. Is that what I heard you say? With no promises, although I did have one question for you.
Yeah, our goal is to have the second stormwater master plan done by next spring and then adopted. But in the meantime, we're keeping our eyes open for grant opportunities. If something were to open up that would fit that neighborhood in our project, we will be all over it. And so I can't promise that's gonna happen. I believe it's gonna happen. I believe right now, with the way the federal government's talking, there's gonna be a lot of money for infrastructure projects.
Infrastructure, yeah.
And with these master plans, we're gonna be ready. And so it's gonna be a lot of hard work, but I fully plan on pursuing grants as soon as they're available. So, so the goal is finish our second master plan for stormwater next spring. And as soon as funding becomes available, grant funding, pursue it.
Hey, very good. So, hey, just one quick question. I know it's a very rough estimate, but you said it could be as much as 100,000 just for the engineering portion of that project?
Right, you know, that's just a number, but, because when you're engineering the drainage for just that street, that's the head of that neighborhood. And where he's talking, where the road's built like a big U, at the bottom there's a big culvert going across there. Well, then from there, it starts going through a neighborhood, through private properties, and I believe it goes under some houses. Okay, and those neighbors, they filled in the ditch over the years and put all different kinds of pipes in, and there's pipes caving in. We get calls, well, hey, I got a sinkhole in my backyard, and people don't really, there's a lot of downstream deficiencies that have to be, Dyer has to go out there and survey all that, and we have to understand what the impacts, if when we renew that road on top, what the impacts are on that drainage through that whole neighborhood to where it dumps out on 101. So whatever those are, I don't know what those are yet. So when I say $100,000 for an engineering plan, that's really loose.
Okay.
Of course, and I understand. I wouldn't
Yeah.
want to pressure for anything more precise than that. Do you have anything else?
No, sir.
Well, thank you very much. Mr. Foss, I'd be glad to give you 1 minute for a closing statement if you like.
Yeah, another point that Mr. Christensen had touched on, he's absolutely correct when it comes to the drainage issues. The people that live down below my house, Tom and Rhoda, just retired from Riley Principal. Tom's house is right at the very bottom on my street, lowest profiled house. And he has that huge storm drain that goes down. And it does run underneath those houses, I'm sure of it. And I have a neighbor back there that took a backhoe in his backyard and started digging a pond. He didn't call, well, in Colorado, we called it blue stake to come out and mark utilities and things like that. Just dug a big old hole. It's still out there. It's got banks on it that are like this, straight up and down, with his kids playing back there. It scares me to death. I guess maybe he thinks that's part of a solution to the drainage, I don't know. But that water just literally runs everywhere. And you're correct, everybody puts their own drainage in trying to resolve the problem and run water where they think it's most appropriate without damaging the person downstream from them. A couple of those houses are practically underwater during the winter time. Their backyards are full of water.
So you
Something needs to be addressed, you know? It's our properties. It's the values of the homes, it's the community, it's the safety. It needs to be addressed sooner than later, please. Thank you very much for your time today, folks.
Hey, you mentioned
Appreciate it.
Powers. They've been pretty lucky on a couple of impressive grants, that little community of 800 people.
Yeah, it's a small town. I've been
Yeah.
there once.
So thank you for taking the time to come in today. You represented your neighborhood well, and I'm sure we'll be seeing you again in the next few months, couple of years. We'll do the best we can for you.
All right. I assume that'll be the CIP.
Hey, when you wrote me that email, I said, you haven't responded to me. Well, it was clear back 8 months ago in January, and so I somehow dropped the ball there, but thanks for taking my apology on that.
I appreciate it. And here's my file for you.
Okay?
And there's other pertinent information in there that might find interesting, other points that I touched upon.
Looks like you're a pretty good photographer.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
I took a couple classes in college. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to forego a break. You're welcome. And we're going to go to item 3A, Roadmaster request for having enterprise contract services for all new Curry County General Service vehicle purchases and sales, including Sheriff Department with Roadmaster authority. Roadmaster Christensen, welcome back, Council Pope.
Mr. Alfred, are you there? He's got us on mute. He was live a while ago.
I'll send him an email.
All right, go ahead.
Maybe we have to resend, because he was supposed to be here at 2, maybe I don't.
He's there.
He is?
Well, it says his name.
Yeah, it's just his
That
mic.
big
His
A.
microphone's muted.
Okay.
I'm sending him an email.
Because he's pretty much leading
Oh,
this.
there he
group.
is.
There he is.
He heard us.
And so, thanks for holding on there for that last customer concern there, Ryan. And so, yeah, so we're here we're today to talk about the Roadmaster request for having enterprise contract service, look at the entire general service fleet, not including the sheriff department, but also too is to kind of talk about what we've been talking about the last couple of months, and also so there's 3 things of what I'm asking Ryan to do here today. One is Curry Fair would like to get a vehicle, and I think if he breaks down how it works for buying one vehicle, and it helps us understand what it's like to buy 10 and 20, and what we're trying to do, what the process is, and then we want to talk again about last board meeting where we bought 10 gen service vehicles, and there was 10 more. We want to talk about those other 10 and what that looks like. And then we also want to talk about the vehicles that were left behind, and what may be the best way to use the equity from those vehicles left behind from public health. And because he didn't get a talk last time, it wasn't linked in, and so that's kind of what we want to talk about, and using that equity to get the sheriff some new vehicles. And so to talk about this process comprehensively for the whole gen services and what that business model looks like, to kind of get from where we're maintaining old vehicles to where we're have the sheriff and search and rescue not going in vehicles that are breaking down, but they're actually getting to where they need to go with the vehicle that works, not something that has 100,000 miles on it. So we want to get out of that old business model, and I think we have a plan here that we're presenting to you that makes sense, and will keep the sheriff's department in good vehicles using the equity lease program. Thank you. It's all yours, Ryan.
Did we unmute him, or does he unmute
He
himself?
unmutes himself.
Can you hear us, Mr. Alford?
You're muted.
You're muted.
Court, you can't unmute him with that mouse?
Mm-mm.
I only speak that language. I don't understand it.
I'll try and get him an email here. Maybe the volume is down too much. Is that possible? I don't think so.
His computer's turned off.
Say again?
Hey, Ryan, check your computer speaker, see if it's turned off, because it shows that it's turned off.
Eric, help.
Showing ours is up on top too there. If you look under the Board of Commissioners, see the X there? Up top? Right to the left, no. Right there.
He's smiling. Why did she come to work?
Our mic is off too, it looks like.
Sheriff, real quick, can I?
Why does it show the cameras off too?
Yeah, our camera camera on the system hasn't been working for some time. That's
Oh,
why
okay.
we turned this on. This was on you guys.
Oh,
But I just sent him the unmute request.
I did too. On an email you did?
You know, on
Why don't we click out of it and refire it?
JJ or anyone, do we have the info, meeting info handy?
Looks like his is muted. He has got muted.
Yeah, so we sent him a request to unmute.
I sent him an email.
I got the meeting here, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, just leave the meeting and restart it
Yeah,
again.
you want to send him, maybe send him another email, let him know. Seems like he's here.
Yeah, I know this scenario. This is reminiscent of last Friday's housing committee meeting.
I just told him he could also maybe call in. Yeah, he got my email.
Say hello.
I can hear you.
Can you hear us?
You can hear me, it sounds like. Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear now.
All right,
Thank
that's
you very
good,
much.
that's good. Wait, let's do that.
You know, I'm tired of doing stuff anyway, you know, phone calls are fine. I wish I could be there in person. I apologize, but I got two sick kiddos at home right now, so I'm stuck. But I wish I could be there in person.
How's our volume? Can you hear us okay?
I can hear you just fine. Can you hear me clear?
Perfect, perfect volume. So Roadmaster
All right.
Christensen, just turn the meeting over to you. Carry on if you like.
Carry on, yes, thank you, Rich, I appreciate it. So yeah, just to back up real quick, a couple different agenda items, that I wanted to discuss with you all today, so it should not take up too much of your time, maybe 15, 20 minutes here, unless you have a lot more questions, of course, but, I wasn't able to listen in on the board meeting 2 weeks ago. I just want to say thank you to the entire board for the opportunity to work with you all again, and I'm stressing enough how excited our team is. Roadmaster Christian has been a pleasure to work with, and I don't have enough polite things to say enough about it, so thank you very much again for that. You know, we left off last meeting with a few different items we wanted to address today. One being, there's 10 additional general service vehicles that we need to discuss and have a conversation about. I understand those were left off in the last one. I didn't listen in on that. We want to bring that back up and have a conversation about it. We also want to talk about some additional vehicles that look like they're being passed on down to the sheriff's department, and just have an open conversation about at least what my advice is and what my recommendation is for those units, those vehicles. We can discuss that. And then between the last meeting and this meeting, I got a couple emails back and forth regarding fairgrounds, their need for a vehicle. Talking with Roadmaster Christensen, he wanted me to kind of do a quick little 5-7 minute synopsis of what our program is, what we're trying to accomplish. I know you all, commissioners, have heard this conversation a few different times, but it sounds like, Fairgrounds hasn't had a chance to look at the numbers. So, is that accurate, Mr. Christensen? Do you want me to do a quick little 5-minute brief explanation for them?
Yes, please.
So yeah, basically, Enterprise Fleet Management is a full-service fleet management company. We work with both private and public entities here in the state of Oregon. Our office is here in Tualatin, and I manage all of Oregon and Southwest Washington as far as the business goes. And we have partnered with other municipalities in the state of Oregon, including Jackson County, we've named off a few different times, Columbia County, for several different municipalities throughout the state, helping them manage their fleet of vehicles. And so we help with everything from acquisition, funding, fuel, maintenance, compliance, safety, license titling to resale. And more specifically of what we're doing here in Curry County really has to pertain to the acquisition of the vehicle and then the optimal time to sell a vehicle. And so the model that, Roadmaster Christian and I have sat down and put together really focus on specific vehicles that have opportunities for a short cycle. And what I mean by short cycle is that historically the county, this is not unique to Curry County, most municipalities, counties do this, where you go out and you buy a vehicle and you pay cash and then you run it for 20 years. And you just kind of do repairs on it as long as you do repairs on it until it dies. We flashed back a couple of years ago, obviously I was down there again presenting to you all, presenting a solution where due to the Curry County's buying power as a government entity and Enterprise's ability to help find the optimal time to replace a vehicle and our resale power, by combining these two worlds together, there's an opportunity for a large portion of your fleet where you could buy a vehicle like a Ram truck, the one that we're using. You could buy it today and sell it 12 months down the road or 24 months down the road for more than you bought it for. And so really what we're trying to accomplish with this kind of a model is minimize the amount of depreciation you're paying on a vehicle, minimize the amount of operating expenses you pay on a vehicle, fuel and maintenance, and just find a long-term financial sustainable plan where the county's not looking up down the road where they're, and we'll talk about it here in a minute, where they're cycling vehicles down to another department and getting rid of even older vehicles out of another department. Here is, long-term cycle of just holding on to vehicles too long. Maintenance becomes an issue, fuel becomes an issue, reliability becomes an issue, safety becomes an issue. So everything that we've touched so far, every vehicle that we've brought up so far, there's a specific reason why we picked that particular vehicle to replace it with, because we have a long-term plan of when we want to cycle it out. So that's what our job is for our clients. That's what our partnership looks like. We're not a dealer. We are a fleet management provider. So we're always looking to have a partnership where we're just having these conversations on an annual basis about what you should be doing with your fleet. So that is Enterprise Fleet Management in a nutshell. Did you all have any questions?
No, sir.
None here?
Nope.
Commissioner Herzog?
You've all heard that before. So no worries there. So yeah, so Rich, if you're there, if you can kind of just speak to what the fairgrounds is asking for, what they're looking for. Yeah, they're looking for one vehicle. We were both thinking about a Ram truck, correct?
He's coming up to the podium.
Yeah, that's correct. So we're looking at a vehicle for them that would have the most effective equity power. And so I was recommending to them a Dodge, a Ram quad cab, 1500 four-wheel drive, the same that we're using for the road department and other gen service departments.
That is correct. So that's my understanding as well.
Yeah, so I guess, what I was thinking is, for the fair board, for them to understand the process, I was thinking maybe you could break down how it would look for them funding-wise and equity-wise for if they were to go into the full equity plan for one vehicle and say it was that Dodge Ram quad cab, four-wheel drive, 1500, what that would look like for them the first year to do the equity plan, and then the second year if you flipped it at the second year, and what kind of equity and what the picture would look forward for them for keeping a new vehicle in their fleet.
Yeah, so basically, the way the equity lease structure works is it's basically a flexible finance. So what we're trying to accomplish is, if we're recommending that the holding pattern on a particular vehicle is 12 months or 24 months, instead of paying cash for the vehicle, or writing the vehicle down to a zero when it's a financing fee, we're recommending holding on to for maybe 12 months. So we only want to depreciate that vehicle for 12 months. And so what happens is, at the end of the 12-month period, you actually are turning that vehicle back in. We are reselling that vehicle back on the open market. And the difference between what you have financed so far and what you still owe, or the book value on that vehicle, is the equity that you get back. So the example that we're showing with very conservative numbers is, you go out today, you buy a 2022 Ram 1500 for right around $27,000. Now, you're not paying cash for that. You're doing a basically flexible finance. So your payment for that type of a vehicle is $491 a month, right around $500 a month. Over a 12-month period, you'll spend about $6,000 in total payment on that vehicle. So we will turn around and sell that vehicle back out in the open market for about $30,000. Your book value at the end of the term of 12 months is $23,000. So you will actually get back an equity check for $7,300, netting you a profit, or a surplus, I should say, of $1,400. So we have clients right now out in the Oregon market, Northwest Youth Corps is a good example of that, where they're a nonprofit, but they get government incentives where they are replacing their F-250 truck on a 12-month basis, doing the exact same model. And they're doing it at a net surplus as it pertains to depreciation. All the while, they're keeping their vehicles safe, they're keeping their vehicles young, and they have low maintenance to no maintenance, and they have the best fuel efficiency they can get in a brand new vehicle. That's the model we want to get you all into, versus driving a 2003 Handy now that comes from gas and has a lot of maintenance. So that's the structure. It basically just helps you to not have to forego a large capital expense out the gate, but still don't have risk in losing depreciation on the vehicle as well. And that's why the Ram truck makes sense. You may not need a truck per se as the ideal vehicle. You may be okay with a sedan or a small SUV. But the way the trucks depreciate in this market, 4x4 quad cabs or crew cabs, they just hold their value so well, financially it makes a lot of sense. And so, I'm not a Ram dealer, I'm not a truck guy per se, I'm just trying to offer you all the best tool for the job that will have the least amount of cost in operating. And that's why we're moving forward with so many trucks. Any questions on that?
Go ahead.
No, I said no.
I said no.
So I have a couple, maybe unrelated questions, close. So, does your company actually work with patrol vehicles? Because it seemed like a meeting or two back we discussed, because there's so much work to equip those that sometimes the value drops off quite a bit. Could you update me on that, or update us on that?
Yeah, I think that's our third bullet point kind of today's talk, is that I listened in last time, and I think we're having two separate conversations at the same time. So let me break that down for you. To answer your question, yes, we do pursuit vehicles or emergency response vehicles. We work with the City of St. Helens, City of Sandy, City of Hermiston, and we've done a lot of this for these vehicles for them. So your prototypical Ford Utility Interceptor, Dodge Charger, fully upfitted, ballistic doors, you name it, we can help with all of that. So table that just for a second. That's one conversation, right?
Okay.
Those vehicles have different holding patterns. You don't cycle it out every 12 months. You can't. It doesn't make any sense financially. Some of those vehicles have anywhere from 10 to 20K in upfit alone, additional upfit, okay? So depending on how they're upfitted through the Sheriff's Department now, I've seen it all over the place. I've seen anything from, 16, 17, 18K sometimes for those vehicles. So I get that part of it. Those we probably recommend putting them on a 36-month or 60-month cycling point, depending on how many miles your sheriff's office is driving. The rule of thumb in sheriff's vehicles, for every mile in a normal vehicle, about a mile and a half in a sheriff's vehicle. They just speed them up a little bit more, They obviously are driving in a little bit more. So when you get up in that 70, 80,000 mile range on a utility, it's really about 125,000 miles or 130,000 miles. And most police departments and sheriff's offices I speak to, maintenance becomes such a extent at that point in time in those vehicles' lives. We need to have a sustainable plan to replace them. So with certain municipalities we work with, we've done a 5-year recycling plan based off their mileage. And then for others, we'll do on 36 months because they're doing 30 to 40,000 miles per year. So we can address that, we can have a conversation about that. And I think that leads to the bigger question was, I think, we're not gonna solve all the problems today on the 15, 20-minute phone call, but I think what we're trying to get out of this meeting is that we need to go through a similar exercise that we've done with Rich in his department. We need to have a similar conversation with Sheriff. It's not gonna be the same, right? Like I said, emergency response vehicles that are upfitted to the T have a different holding pattern than the sheriff's admin vehicles. And so from my understanding and looking at the fleet list, they have quite a bit of vehicles over there, maybe 7 to 10, that are just plain Jane, hand-me-down, admin, patrol, not patrol, but admin vehicles, training vehicles. Those are the vehicles that we should be targeting from the conversations that we've had so far. Sidebar to that, if you want to have a conversation about their emergency response vehicles, we can do that as well. But they are two separate holding patterns and conversations. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you, and you answered my second question already, so, Commissioner Herzog? Commissioner Pash? No. Go ahead, Mr. Alford, thank you.
Yeah, so I think I was listening in the last call and this topic came up with this 2014 Camry and this 2015, I think Commissioner Pash correctly said, hey, let's table this conversation, go ahead and start driving them now, and then we can kind of come up with a solution in the next couple of weeks. So, talking with Rich, he just wanted me to speak about what my recommendation would be on that. At the end of the day, obviously, you all can do whatever you want with your vehicles, but my only concern is that 2014 and that 2015, to the sheriff's point, are in good condition, and you can probably drive them for another 3 or 4 years and probably have no problem. It'd probably be great for you. However, for every year you drive that vehicle, and every year you don't sell it, there is a cost to that. It's not free. There's no such thing as a free car. You all know this, Commissioner Pash, you definitely know this in your history, is that every year you hold on to that vehicle, it's going to lose 2 or 3 grand of value. Just is. Just the way how old they are, how many miles you drive them. And at some point in time, the sheriff's going to look up 3 or 4 years from now, and be back in that room, and be asking you about your vehicle again. And so I think what Roadmaster Christensen is trying to say is that, look, if we put him in a similar model to what he's doing on his side of the fence, he won't have that problem 3 years down the road. If you guys continue to do what you're doing now, which is just kind of punt replacement and pass things down, it just never really fixes the problem long term. And so I think he should still be driving those vehicles until we come up with a solution. But I think the exercises from him, myself, and Roadmaster Christian sit down and have a conversation about his fleet on the side, make sure we're all rowing, because right now we're not rowing in the right direction. We need to be rowing in the right direction for your fleet. And I think if we can have a conversation on the side, come up with a solution that makes sense, and then come back in a few weeks, maybe a month, and present that option to you on the board, then we can make a decision on those vehicles, whether we sell them, whether to keep them. It's up to you all at the end of the day. I think that would be a good exercise.
So what I'm looking for is, the board, just being honest with you, it's like, I don't manage the sheriff's fleet. Okay, it's in my budget, it's in budgets that I manage. I manage 3 budgets for insurance, for repairs, and for replacement that I don't have control of. The sheriff has full control. And so, what I'm trying to do is get us into a business model that mirrors what we've done in the other 2 departments, that on these vehicles that aren't pursuit vehicles, that don't have to be fully outfitted, we get the sheriff department, we look at everything in a fine-tooth comb. Like 2 weeks ago, I said there's like 12 vehicles that have less than 750 miles on them last year, and there's a handful that don't have 0 miles. And the sheriff alluded to at the meeting that when they go on search and rescue, they take their own vehicles. They don't even want to drive those junkers, you know? And so the thing is that, so what I'm getting at is that we need to have vehicles that people feel confident driving to their emergencies, whether it's the deputies or it's search and rescue, that they're outfitted, but maybe they're not all outfitted with $20,000 of computers and all the other bells and whistles to keep them safe. And so some of these vehicles are just standard vehicles. They take them to training. They're like motor pool vehicles. They take them to trainings. You know, they alluded to they got some trainings that are like, I guess 16 weeks, and they need to have these vehicles to do these trainings. And so I'm thinking these vehicles could be these Dodge Rams that have high equity, flip value, and we try to get the low-hanging fruit first, but then I think what we're gonna find is that we're gonna be making equity every year, that equity, if we took the whole general service department pool, this is, you know, the assessor's vehicles, juvenile services, the building department, your commissioner vehicles, and they're all, that we take equity power of all those vehicles that have high equity value, we flip them based on what enterprise tells us what to do, that we could have money to maybe try to get into a 3 to 5 year vehicle replacement plan for the sheriff to keep his cruisers in good shape and new, and get away from having this old fleet of vehicles that he's currently managing. So that's what I'm trying to do, and I'm trying to get where, what I hope is this, is that we get so efficient and effective that the sheriff's not asking the general fund for money, so the general fund's not asking the road department for money, and no other department head is ever asking the general fund for money. That if you allow enterprise and the roadmaster to manage these budgets, we might be able to get into a place where it's self-sustaining. Or maybe we're just asking for a little bit of money from the general fund, but we're not asking for hundreds of thousands of dollars from the general fund. I mean, from the general fund, yeah. So anyways, that's kind of what the vision is. And so I guess what we're asking right now today is for your permission to dissect the sheriff department and look at it with the sheriff's department, working with them, enterprise and the roadmaster, and with all the information the road department has, because we document every cost that goes into each one of those vehicles. We know exactly what it costs that vehicle to run per mile. And so, and we look at those vehicles, and we work with the sheriff department. We get him what he needs, but get them vehicles that they actually want to use, that aren't just sitting there, you know. And so that's kind of what I'm trying to do. So I'm just looking for permission to do that.
Commissioner Herzog?
I'm in agreement.
Commissioner Pat? You had,
I was just gonna say, John wanna speak to,
I want to go to Commissioner.
So, Roadmaster Christensen, before you
Okay.
leave there,
Yeah, my back's out on me.
oh,
Roadmaster Christensen, I had a couple quick questions for you. Sorry, Lieutenant, I'll just make it short here. Your people do all the maintenance, including the equipment, right? Equipping.
No, we don't do the equipping. Usually, in the past, when the road department would set those vehicles up and buy those vehicles, they were contracted out of Salem. You know, they get the stickers put on them, the radios, and we'd work with Day Wireless, and Day Wireless would hook up the computers. And so, you know, what this business model enterprise would be doing all that through a package that the sheriff would want. And then the enterprise would put that package together. So the sheriff would say, you know, we want these radios, we want these cages, we want these sirens, or whatever that is, that model. And enterprise is saying, you know, some counties spend, you know, 10 grand on that model, some counties spend 20 grand. And so that's what enterprise would be doing for us. And so first we got to determine how many of those type of vehicles he needs. And then we get that specification. Enterprise puts a package together, presents it to the Roadmaster. Roadmaster presents it to the board through the sheriff's department, and then the board decides whether you want to move forward or not.
Okay. But you do the maintenance. I'm not saying it's a lot or a little, I mean.
Oh, yeah, just the oil changes and tires and, yeah, brakes, we do all that in-house.
Thank you, that helps a lot. Welcome, Lieutenant Hensley.
Thank you for letting me talk again. Lieutenant Hensley, Sheriff's Office. I think we have two different conversations going on right now. We have the one at the patrol end where we need all our very specialized equipment, very specialized vehicles. And I mean, there'll be more questions later on. I think we'd save those for enterprise if we do have a discussion about what a high equity vehicle is versus what we use right now and find works well in Curry County. I think there might be two different things there. Second thing is that when it comes down to like our motor pool cars, all we have is the two that we've just got from Public Health. And then one that could be considered, because it's not a patrol rated vehicle, is what our emergency manager drives. So that's only 3 vehicles for this other program that could start whenever. Sheriff just wants to make sure people have a very safe vehicle to drive. That's the reason why we're using them right now, because our other vehicles were breaking down. We have 2 at Academy right now. So when we get to search and rescue, we use 1-ton vehicles and 3/4-ton vehicles for specific purposes to be able to tow heavy trailers and stuff like that. I don't know if that could be part of this program or if they deal exclusively in the 1/2-ton truck. And then also, I have a Dodge pickup myself. I don't know what the cab difference is between mine and the one Rich has purchased from the city, but I cannot fit in the back of the county vehicles. They don't appear that I could fit. They're very narrow back seat. If that was to be used for our search and rescue missions, I don't see how personnel would be able to get in and out with all their gear, climbing gear, whatever other equipment they need. We have specifically the huge cab pickups for those reasons. The pickups don't get used a lot, but when they do, we do need them to work. They are a tool, just like any of our other patrol vehicles. I wish I could say they would come back in showroom shape every single time, but they won't. So I would be curious to know if we incur a mandatory repair policy on all vehicles for any damage, any dents, scratches, or otherwise. I don't think we have any SAR vehicles that aren't forest pinstriped right now. So those are some things that we need to consider that
Oh, I got you.
we don't, with these vehicles, whenever they do take them to some of the nastiest, deepest holes. And how we get them down there and how we get them out, nobody wants to know. And unfortunately, we'll probably have to disclose it. Because, I mean, they treat them pretty harshly, but they don't abuse them. It's just a tool. So those are just some things that we need to consider. When it comes to the patrol vehicles, there's so many variations between what a city and municipality needs versus a county. Yes, sir.
We keep you at the microphone, and let's let him go back and address, I think it's very interesting on the 3/4-ton and the 1-ton.
Yes.
And if we could actually save the county money, could you speak to that, Mr. Alford? Did you hear that, his
Loud
concerns
and clear.
there?
I think first off, Lieutenant Hensley is exactly right. There's 2 conversations happening here. He's absolutely right. Emergency response vehicles is a whole different beast of an animal. So that's a conversation you can have when time comes. We can do any vehicle you want, 1-ton, 3/4-ton. We can do up to F-750s. We can do Freightliners, dump bodies, street sweepers. We can do a lot of stuff. So that's not an issue from our perspective. I don't know if these are outfitted with just standard sirens, maybe a headache rack on the back, some toolbox in the back. So I think, again, Mr. Henry's right off the button where it's like, look, I don't have all the answers today. I don't know all the details today. But I think we can sit down and just have a conversation about it and figure out a plan that makes sense for the sheriff's department. And we need to separate those conversations into 2 categories: emergency response and everything else.
Yeah.
So I wrote all this down right now, all these notes. As far as condition goes, and just to answer your question on that, these are your vehicles. So you're a self-insured county and you have a liability policy. That doesn't change with an enterprise vehicle. Same concept. The county has signed a self-insured addendum to our master agreement, so we don't require insurance for the vehicle itself. I will tell you, just from my 14-year experience, I work with lumber companies, I work with other police departments. We are not expecting these things to come back pretty. Okay, and if it comes back beat to hell, we might tell you to keep it for another 12 months. So we'll assess that. This is a partnership where we're constantly being fluid and making good decisions for your fleet. Condition's a big part of that, to your point. You may ask you to repair something if we have to. Who knows, right? So we'll kind of cross that bridge when you come to it. But yeah, we're not expecting people to come back in a great rental condition as our rental partner, sister company would expect. We're in the fleet world, we've seen it all.
Okay.
Mr. Oliver, he also mentioned adequate room, and so I interpret that as good leg room, good headroom, good in and out access. Could you speak to that?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, again, if he's driving in a regular cab, there's no back, even an old ramp and extended cab, those are really small back ends. They've grown and redesigned since then, so I would imagine if he was in a crew cab, clearly there'd be plenty of space. Crew cabs are very spacious in the back. I mean, I could, fit my whole family on a crew cab truck. They're great. Quad cabs are a little smaller, but quad cabs nowadays are more of a full door than the old-fashioned, 10-year-old Ram trucks that little half door that he's probably speaking about. So, but absolutely, you can do any truck, bed length, cab length, whatever you need to get done to accomplish your goals. He's right. These are tools. I could not agree more. We use that terminology in our world so often. So, we'll just find him the best tool for the job.
So I think to get this conversation going in the direction that Rich and the commissioners sound like they want to go, I don't believe the sheriff would be opposed if it comes down to our 2 motor pool cars and the emergency services car, however that it was funded or here or whatever. As long as we have safe vehicles for our staff to drive to and from trainings, that would be our concern for right now. And a total separate conversation in regards to our SAR and all the other vehicles we own, because they're so specially.
Sheriff Ward?
Oh, man.
This Sheriff Ward, I'm limping a little bit. Overdid a little bit last weekend, catching 54 tuna and a couple other things. But one thing is right, it is my fleet, and I take very seriously being able to drive vehicles that are my deputies are safe in. And we put a lot of miles on our cars. We have a system right now where we try to replace about every year we replace 1 or 2 vehicles, and it's been working pretty well. And we probably put up a neighborhood of 150,000 miles on them. They're well maintained by the shops. So when we buy a vehicle on state bid or whatever, we end up paying another $10,000 to $12,000 just for the install of the equipment and the equipment to go into it. So when you change that out, that's going to be a huge expense if we want to use the parts and pieces that we like, the ones that we order and buy and have installed through Day Wireless, because it's well trusted. Our radio systems, our cages, our sirens and all that. So I wouldn't want a vehicle that it just gets put together with some cheap equipment for my guys. And correct me if I'm wrong, but the board already approved us using those other 2 cars, and we've already got them in service, and they're both, well, one's at the academy right now. And so those are very reliable cars. They didn't cost the county any money. It's, it just doesn't make sense for me to sell those right off the bat. If we're going to go this route with the trucks, I wouldn't want to sell those until we get the trucks in hand. And I'd want to make sure that those vehicles are dedicated to the sheriff's office, not in a pool car where we have to slap a sticker on the side of it every time we want to use a car and ask for it. Like I say, when we need it now, and it's like the SAR vehicles. Yeah, they may not be pursuit-rated vehicles or anything like that, but they are emergency response vehicles. We have, some of them have lights, most of them have sirens. We have to be able to hit a siren when we're looking for somebody to see if they can hear it. And the radio systems in them, it's just, if you're gonna take those out and replace them every time, that's gonna be quite expensive. I don't know if it's gonna save any money doing that. So that's just my 2 cents.
Mr. Oliver, do you want to speak to that, in particular, the guidelines, maybe even the standards for the Sheriff's Department is still going to budget and determine what kind of equipment goes in the cars. Wouldn't Enterprise just be, they're not going to pick and choose different equipment. Do I have that correct?
Yeah, I think this is why a phone call or a meeting separately from this is so important. There's obviously we need to do a job, we need to explain this program better to the sheriff's office so they know what this is and they can understand it. I think that would be very, very crucial. To answer your question, absolutely. Enterprise is not in the upfitting business. We use Wireworks, we use State Wireless for every single local Oregon municipality or county that shares vehicle through us. We do not dictate what you put in them. You can do whatever you want. It does not matter to us at all. We're literally designed to say, here's what you buy, here's how long you should hold on to it, here's what you should replace it with. That's our goal. So, behind the scenes, I agree with the sheriff. You need to have the right equipment in there. You need to go through all that. It needs to be accurate. You're gonna know the equipment better than I'm gonna know the equipment. 100%. You lieutenant could know the equipment of a police car inside out than I do. It's your office. You're gonna know everything. So I 100% agree with all that. As it pertains to the two local full vehicles that you just got from last week, I agree. I think what the plan should be is that we should sit down and have a conversation about what the cost could look like to your department specifically if we were to replace those with a more equitable long-term vehicle plan. And I think you'll probably would hold on to those, and this is getting up to you all, but I would think in theory you'd hold on to those until the replacements got there. So I'm not saying that you sell them today, right? Like, you need a vehicle, I think you're right, you can use them. But those vehicles are worth $35,000. And so there is a cost to that. And so I want to make sure that from a fleet perspective, the way we view things is just what's the vehicle worth today and what's it worth in 12 months. If you don't replace those vehicles this year, how much money are we going to lose in perceived resale? That is legit, that's real dollars being pulled away from you all because you're not selling the vehicle when maybe you should have. So I think, again, we just need to sit down and have a conversation. I need to walk them through how this structure works. I need to show them the numbers so they can make an informed decision on those two vehicles. That's the name of the game. So we're not going to solve that today, obviously.
Thank you. Sheriff?
My comment to that is, look at the money we're saving by not having to buy vehicles and using the vehicles we have.
Well,
He's gonna-
therein lies the,
Again,
I know what you're saying.
The whole point, yeah.
I know what you're saying, John, but that, I saw the light a while back. And he'll explain that. Hopefully I can do it in person. But we get to the point where it's just, the flipping these cars is actually a benefit.
And I have a question because I've been asked about this several times. How can a government agency buy a car on government rates and turn around and sell it for private rates? It's just, there seems to be a little bit of an ethics problem there. Can you explain that?
Oh yeah, Enterprise has been in business for 60 years. It's the exact same model we apply for our own fleet. We negotiate large rebates and incentives for our own 2 million fleet, and we do our best with ability to sell them at the optimal time. These are leases. We're buying it directly from the manufacturer. They do have minimum requirements for holding patterns, but it's like 6 months because we're not a dealer. So we are leasing these back to you and then you're reselling them. We work with over 1,000 government agencies across the country, and the vast majority of them are doing this exact same model. Again, it's just taking advantage of the government incentives the dealerships provide you. This is not coming from the state bid. This is coming from Ford. This is coming from Ram, from Chrysler. These are the rebates and incentives they provide government agencies. So we're buying them, and it's really no different than what we do. We get really large rebates. We buy about 1 million vehicles per year. We sell 1 million vehicles per year. A lot of the local dealerships feed off of our used inventory. That's how they make a lot of their money too. So it's all part of that. Yeah, and my 14-year career, actually, this is the first time it's ever come up working with Curry County now. So, yeah, it's just taking advantage of the model that makes the most financial sense for Curry County.
It's legal.
Would you?
Yeah,
In my position, you understand my questions.
Yeah.
What's that?
I said, in my position as a sheriff and want to make sure we're all above the law, I want to make sure that those questions are answered.
Yeah.
But that's what, isn't that what you do? I mean, you buy a car at a certain price and then
Well, no, I understand exactly what the sheriff's saying, and that is that there are, you know, and it's the manufacturers that offer these incentives through certain buying programs through state and local governments. They offer these incentives to get people to fleet purchase vehicles. It's been done for a long time, and there are some time constraints through some manufacturers, and and I'm sure Enterprise know those constraints between each manufacturer. It's usually 6 months to a year you have to hold the vehicle, and then you are allowed to resell it for a profit, and it is perfectly legal. It's an incentive to get you to buy Dodge cars in a large group of fleet sale.
Like I said, I'm just need those answers to be able to answer the questions that
No,
get
I
brought
understand.
forward to me.
I'm just letting you know that it is legal, so
So,
to my knowledge.
Commissioner Herzog, one thing, if you can hear me, Mr. Alford, on the relay of these vehicles, sometimes because of the use that the patrol rigs get subjected to, obviously, Curry County's no exception either way, compared to other counties, but they still may not have the resale value. I think that's the sheriff's point. And then but you also covered that, you know, sometimes you gotta hang on to those vehicles more than just a couple of years. I said it way too long.
Yeah, I think we're talking very broad strokes right now. That's
Yeah.
make sure I'm very clear that I'm not gonna go into his sheriff's department and say, hey, you gotta start replacing your Ford utility sensors every 2 years. But, I mean, let's just be real here, like, let's have two separate conversations about two separate vehicles. We don't even have to touch his emergency response even, or his pursuit related, patrol related vehicles. I mean, it's all up to you all what you feel comfortable with. You gotta walk sometimes before you run, before we sprint. I think, just having an honest conversation, I guarantee you there's something within his department you might be able to help him out with. And if you can, and you can save his department money, get him a vehicle that makes sense for him, then I think that's great. I think he's correct in the fact that, yes, we're not gonna go in there and start ripping out radios in 24 months on the truck and then put $16,000 back into it. That doesn't make any sense. Just like in road department, you've got big old dump trucks, big old utility bodies, and service bodies, and guess what? We're not doing a 12-month cycle on those either, because it does not make financial sense. Our job is not to put you into a situation where you're losing money because we're not a dealer, we're not just trying to sell you vehicles here. So there's certain vehicles that are gonna make sense to hold on for 10 years. Again, back to roads department, we're gonna do a different financing structure on his bigger rig. He might hold on to those for 7, 8, 9, 10 years. But the argument's gonna be at some point in time, well, maybe we don't hold on for 20 years. Maybe it's a 9-year hold, maybe it's an 8-year hold. But we'll be there along the way to help you make those decisions. That's no different than what the sheriff's department has. And again, I think just, on the side, I can get on a quick phone call or come down there next time we're in town, next month, it's kind of our plan, and sit down for 20 minutes and just give him a high-level overview of what we do and who we work with and other, police and officers that we work with, and sheriff's departments we work with. And I would highly recommend he reaches out and just talks to them, That would be the best, to hear directly from them versus me.
Well, I know we've switched over to the Ford Explorers, and we've been driven them for 5, 6 years now, and we're switching out of those to the Dodge Durangos because of several things. They're a little bit more economical. Their gas tanks are much larger. We drive right now with 17-gallon tanks, and we're stopping every town we go to get gas, or having to stop in the middle of a pursuit somewhere to get gas. So that's why we're changing over to the Durangos, and it's just a process. We're using what we got until we need something different.
Yeah, City of St. Helens is a great example of that. We started a partnership with them 2 years ago. We flipped out their entire police force. Gosh, they were still driving around with that old Grand Marquis and Town and Countries, but they also had some Ford utility scepters, and we switched to a full Durango fleet. So they have 2019, probably 10 of them now at this point, all Durangos, all upfitted, and I have a personalized letter of recommendation from their chief of police, Brian Greenway, I can send your way. He'd be a great reference to reach out to, just kind of hear from him.
Okay. In case there's any other questions, I'm going to sit back down.
I think that's all we have, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay. Lieutenant, Sheriff, thanks for being here today, and Roadmaster Christensen. So did you need a consensus or just a general direction for support, Roadmaster Christensen?
Just that the board supports us moving forward and trying to put a proposal together with what the sheriff's fleet would look like through Enterprise Services.
So So we can't take a vote, but I think you have a general positive movement forward.
Okay, we'll try to get something together for you in the next 4 to 6 weeks.
I'm sure it would be really good for him to come down and meet with the sheriff as well, and do a face-to-face and sit down and explain to the sheriff what he offers, and the sheriff can tell him what he's looking for, and hopefully they can have a meeting of the minds.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Mr. Alford, you offered to do that with the sheriff and his staff, and I agree that would be the next step when it can be scheduled in.
Yeah, I'll connect with Rich directly, and I'll let Rich get that lined up, and we'll be down there. And I agree. I would love to have, at some point in time, we want to start our onboarding process. So I want to introduce you to your accounts team, and that will all be a face-to-face interaction. So we'll kind of kill two birds with one stone on that particular day.
Roger that.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
So we're going to take a break.
You all have a wonderful day.
Come back at 3:40, please, and we're going to go into executive session.
Pick the dog.
There's something about having land and sea. Never having to choose between digging in or looking out. Here,